This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A Winnipeg couple arrested for allegedly torturing and killing animals is now facing new significant charges. The latest include bestiality, child pornography offences, and charges related to planning to torture a child. CBC's Caitlin Gowerluck has more, and a warning: this story contains details some viewers may find disturbing and distressing.
It's an update in a case police called deeply disturbing. A Winnipeg couple charged in October with posting videos of torturing and killing animals on the dark web, now facing more charges after police combing through their devices found hundreds of photos and videos. Irene Lima and Chad Cabex were arrested again earlier this week on the extra charges. Lima's 20 new charges also include accessing child pornography and possessing proceeds of crime. Police say more than 75 animals were filmed or photographed being tortured and killed earlier this year on a dark website the accused allegedly profited from. Investigators say they made others submit videos of animal torture to join the site. The investigation has now expanded to several other countries. That's according to Winnipeg Police Service spokesperson Constable Stephen Spencer.
It's international. It covers so many aspects of these criminal offenses, and we've never seen anything like this. Absolutely.
Police say they also found messages between the accused talking about wanting to torture a child, and they believe there was a sexual component involved. The update comes the same day Lima was supposed to be in court for a bail hearing. That appearance was postponed after the new charges were laid. Cabex was previously out on bail, but is now also back in custody. Demonstrators outside the courthouse Wednesday were relieved to hear that. But Christy Zamansky says they were also heartbroken to hear the extent of the new allegations.
We assumed at the beginning it was going to be more, especially with the dark web. We knew that definitely there was going to be a lot more than that was stated, but hearing more than 75 is terrible.
In court Wednesday, a judge barred the two accused from contacting each other. Both have court dates scheduled next month. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Businesses in the province are scrambling to prepare for the possibility of new U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports. President-elect Donald Trump promised to enact 25% tariffs after he assumes office. But what exports here in Manitoba might be affected? CBC's Bartley Kivas breaks it down.
In 2023, Manitoba exported $15.5 billion worth of goods and services to the United States. Increasing the cost of those goods by 25% would have major implications on our economy. Premier Wab Kinew didn't sugarcoat the potential harm.
We look at the potential impact of a 25% tariff. All sorts of stats we could share. The bottom line is it would mean a recession.
The general consensus among economists is large new tariffs would result in runaway inflation, cratering consumer spending, and massive losses at businesses that export goods to the U.S. Manitoba's chief export to the U.S. in dollar terms is medications. $2.3 billion worth of meds went south in 2023, including drugs made by Bosch and Steinbach and Pfizer and Brandon.
That's what everyone's trying to grapple with, is probably the severity of it. We know it's going to be very severe, but what does that mean?
Canola and canola oil was Manitoba's second largest export to the U.S. last year. $1.3 billion of canola in 2023. Manitoba also sold $702 million worth of electricity to the U.S. at prices negotiated well before Donald Trump was reelected. How tariffs could be applied to hydro exports remains unclear. Manitoba also exported $628 million worth of frozen potatoes and other veggies to the States in 2023, $610 million of oil and gas, and $439 million of pork and live pigs. Manitoba pork producers say tariffs will eliminate their largest export market.
My assessment is that U.S. retailers couldn't afford to put Canadian pork onto their shelves, and the same thing with U.S. farmers that couldn't afford to buy Canadian pigs to finish.
While the tariffs are not guaranteed, Donald Trump has threatened to apply them if Canada doesn't spend more on border security. The Prime Minister and Canada's premiers met Wednesday to consider a response. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A phone call between the Prime Minister, Wab Kinew, and other premiers wrapped up just moments ago. We'll have the latest on that meeting with CBC's Ian Fraze a little later in the newscast.
This bus shelter doesn't offer much shelter. Bus shelters with broken and missing glass have become an increasingly common sight in Winnipeg. The city is struggling to keep up with repairs and is testing out shatterproof glass in an effort to curb the problem. University of Winnipeg student Swayam Sangan says the city should get to work with winter here.
It's broken, heating system is not working in some of the bus stations, so I would recommend Winnipeg Transit to look up on that.
Callie Alexander says she's noticed the issue is more common downtown.
And it's hard to stay warm, especially with like Winnipeg weather. So I don't see them getting any better anytime soon, to be honest.
The number of bus shelters that experienced broken glass in a single year reached a high of 361 in 2022. That fell to 305 last year, and there have been 233 so far this year. But there are more bus shelters missing glass now than ever before, 207 as of November 26th, compared to 115 as of the end of last year. Public Works Chair Janice Luke says the city has seen an uptick in vandalism since the pandemic.
So, instead of replacing multiple times a year, it may be more cost effective to put in a more expensive glass that doesn't get broken.
Luke says the city spends more than $250,000 a year replacing glass. It's looking for contractors to supply polycarbonate glazing, a shatter-resistant alternative to glass. It can cost 3 to 4 times as much as regular glass. Luke's didn't know how many bus shelters will test out the new glass. That will depend on what price the city can get. The project is expected to last about a year. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
2 people were stabbed inside Polo Park Mall yesterday, and police say it was a random and unprovoked attack. It happened shortly before 4 in the afternoon. Police say 2 men in their 40s were sitting on a bench in the mall when they were approached by another man who produced a knife. A physical altercation followed. Police say the 2 men were stabbed during the fight, but were able to restrain their attacker with help from mall security until police arrived. 2 knives were seized. A 20-year-old man is facing a number of charges. Just a few hours later, police were back in the area helping a 19-year-old who'd also been stabbed just mere steps from the mall entrance. It happened around 10:30 last night at a bus shelter along Portage. Police say there was a fight between the victim and 2 suspects. The teen did not know them. Witnesses were able to help direct police to where the 2 ran. A 24-year-old man and 30-year-old woman were found hiding under a structure a short ways away. The 2 were both arrested. The City of Brandon wants the province to let all Manitoba municipalities use photo radar enforcement. Officials are lobbying for the change at an Association of Manitoba Municipalities conference. Currently, under the Highway Traffic Act, only Winnipeg can use the photo radar. Brandon Councillor Bruce Lupke says that needs to change.
You can use it for all these purposes to help curb crime, but you're not going to allow us to use it for traffic safety. And so I think that's one of the things for me is video and photo technology is used in a lot of ways when it comes to enforcement on different things, so why not for traffic enforcement?
Brandon has been lobbying since 2021 for photo radar. Let's bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, it's that time of year where it's dark, it's a little dreary, and unfortunately, viewers, it's going to get a lot colder.
A lot colder weather on the way, Brittany. I know parts of West End have gotten a little taste of that with some minus double digits and certainly a little bit of fog this morning, some frost. I'll show you some images from Brandon early this morning, a little later in the program. First, though, mainly cloudy day again today, although we did see a couple peaks of sunshine as expected through parts of southern Manitoba. Unfortunately, I didn't see the sunshine here in Winnipeg, but yeah, it was another kind of gloomy day today. Rinse and repeat for tomorrow, although I think we'll expect maybe some sunny breaks in the Red River Valley, certainly sunnier conditions back to the west. Few little stray scattered flurries, I should say, as we got through the afternoon hours today. Expect that to continue through the evening. There's just a little bit of instability in that cloud deck out there. So I've got a good chance of flurries or even a little bit of light snow again for parts of the Red River Valley tonight, down to -11 in Winnipeg, -10 first thing in the morning. Another dusting of snow overnight tonight. And Brittany, we're looking at another mainly cloudy day today, but I did put a couple little breaks in that cloud cover through the afternoon. I'm hoping we'll see the sun. I'll have more on that coming up.
I'm hoping too, Riley. We need a little sunshine in our life these days.
I agree.
Riley will be back with just how cold it's going to get. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, still ahead, despite a labor stoppage, Winnipeg postal workers are helping Santa get his letters this holiday season. We'll show you how coming up. Stay with us. There's been a troubling development in efforts to end the strike at Canada Post. The special mediator appointed to help resolve the labor dispute has withdrawn from contract talks, saying the two sides are too far apart on critical issues for mediation to be of any use. And the Labour Minister says he still will not consider binding arbitration to get the mail moving again.
While I would never rule out any option in the future, what I would say right now and for the foreseeable future is if this agreement does not come together at the table, there will be no end to this labour conflict.
The minister later met with both sides in the dispute and firmly urged them to reassess their positions. Around 55,000 workers have been on strike for almost 2 weeks now over wages, benefits, and Canada Post's desire to move to 7-day-a-week delivery. Well, the ongoing Canada Post strike is taking a toll on many Canadians financially and personally, including for the 85,000 people waiting for their passports stuck in the system. Faith Greco has one woman's story about that.
Jocelyn Yu keeps anxiously checking on the status of her visa application. It contains her passport and other important documents and has been stuck in the mail for nearly 2 weeks.
Even up until this day, it says out for delivery, which is ambiguous and it's stressful to look at because you don't know where it is. It could be on a truck, I don't know, in a plant, in a depot, and it's my passport and critical documents and letters.
Yu is a Canadian citizen. After studying in the U.S. for 3 years, she landed a job in Washington. But to get a G4 visa, she needed to mail her application to the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa from within Canada.
2 days before the strike, I tried to contact the U.S. consulate, reminding them of the strike that is about to happen. Unfortunately, I didn't hear back, but this is not to blame anyone. I think no organization was really prepared for the length of the strike.
The strike has now turned what was supposed to be a short visit into an extended stay, with no end in sight, and she's struggling to keep up with the costs.
I've been here for 14 days. I'm paying out of pocket, and it's been really hard. I keep extending my stay.
In a statement to CBC News, Canada Post says items in the system will be delivered on a first-in, first-out basis once operations resume. The U.S. Embassy says it's aware of the issues and urges those seeking visa services to select a different delivery provider, something Yu says wasn't an option at the time of her submission. Yu is now considering applying for a new passport and restarting the process if the labor dispute isn't settled soon. Faith Greco, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meantime, as the holidays inch closer, some people have been wondering how their kids could still get their letters to Santa ahead of Christmas. It's part of a decades-long tradition, and postal workers say it's one that will continue, strike or not. CBC's Felicia Adam has that story.
It's that time of the year where millions of letters are mailed to the North Pole. But this year, Canada Post workers are on strike, which has some kids worried that their wish lists won't make it to Santa's workshop on time.
Did we see Santa? Are you scared?
Ella Buchert sent out her letter before postal workers went on strike, but she's not taking any chances. She's giving Old St. Nick her wish list in person.
I asked for makeup in my stocking. I asked for an ornament for a mini tree in my room.
9-year-old Ava Henson hasn't written her letter yet, but after learning there are plans in place to get her letter to the North Pole, she knows exactly what she'll be writing.
Dear Santa, from Ava. I've been a really good girl this year, and I've been nice to my family, and I would like a Furby.
The Canadian Union of Postal Workers is continuing the 40-year-long tradition of delivering wish lists. On some picket lines, you'll find a box addressed to Santa.
Dispute or not, Santa needs those letters because he needs to figure out who's getting what.
Sean Tugby is the president of Winnipeg Local 856. He says since Monday they've collected over 200 letters addressed to Santa. Instead of going to the red mailbox, they're asking Winnipeggers to visit one of the 3 drop points.
We have them being collected in boxes at different picket sites. So 1199 Nairn, or 208 Provencher, or 1870 Wellington. And we have makeshift boxes set up, and carriers and postal workers alike are here to collect those letters and make sure they get to the big guy himself.
Tugby says letters will be delivered safe and sound. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
We had the Santa parade, some of the first Santa sightings already around the city and the province. And I don't know about you, Riley, but sitting down and writing my letter to Santa was one of my cherished memories when I was a kid. And every year I still ask my nephews, have you written your letter to Santa yet? What are you asking for? And then try to see if there's anything on the Santa list that Auntie can get ideas from. With 4 nephews, it gets hard.
Smart thinking. Weather's looking a lot more seasonal, Christmas-like.
Very Christmas-like.
In parts of the province. I want to show you some images first here from Brandon from early this morning with some of the frost that we saw. There was some fog early this morning through the Westman region this morning, making things look very festive and very pretty for this time of the year, of course, as we see some of these temperatures ebbing and flowing. It's a little bit of moisture bringing some of this hoarfrost into the picture. So thanks to our Chelsea Kemp for shooting some of these images this morning. Brandon, by the way, getting to -11 through the afternoon hours today. Started closer to the -20 mark in Westman, and that's what we're looking at as we get into the next couple of mornings, and some very cold mornings ahead for parts of our province. -13s today through Swan River and Roblin, and we did get to -5.7 this afternoon in Winnipeg. So yeah. There you go. Upper level atmosphere, you can see the difference in the jet stream from yesterday, how it started to sink a little bit further south. And what that's going to do is on the back of this area of low pressure, bring in some of those colder temperatures over the next few days, really lasting into the weekend for much of us in Manitoba. And this menacing area of low pressure off into Quebec now. This is still bringing snow and rain to parts of the maritime provinces. As we get into the day on Thursday, we are looking at the cloud sticking around once again, although we'll see some sunnier breaks through parts of the province as we get through the day on Thursday. So like I mentioned, a mostly cloudy sky. There's a hint that we could see a little bit of light snow, a dusting as we get into the overnight hours, into the early morning on Thursday. And then as we get into the afternoon hours, you'll notice that we do actually get some clearing back to the west. So Brandon, more like a mix of sun and clouds, even a mainly sunny sky into the late afternoon. And Winnipeg, the Red River Valley, we're on the edge of this clearing. So I think we've got a shot at maybe a couple of peaks of sunshine through the afternoon tomorrow in the Red River Valley. Maybe see some of that again on Friday, but certainly we're staying into this cloudy sky as we get through the next couple of days, at least here. I know it just really feels like it's really stuck around. I know I've certainly missed the sunshine. Upper level atmosphere, as you can see, as expected, we're starting to see some of these colder temperatures really sink in through Thursday into Friday, into the -20s for parts of western Manitoba, overnight lows, but into Saskatchewan, looking at some temperatures close to that -30 mark as we get into the day on Friday into Sunday. So we are looking at some very cold weather moving in, -19 in Swan River first thing. We're looking at a -9 first thing for Winnipeg. And into the long range, -9 throughout the day tomorrow with that chance of flurries in Brittany. Temperatures like these sticking around into the long range forecast.
Okay, Riley, that was a heavy sigh if you couldn't hear it.
I know. I miss the sun. I really miss the sun.
I think we all miss the sun. Oh, thank you. You bring a little sunshine. The CN shops on Pandora Avenue West are ready for the holidays. We have more to come after the break. Stay with us. We're right back after this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wants to give Canadians a GST holiday, but his Liberals need at least one opposition party to support the legislation, and both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois are making a key demand. Rafi Boudjikanian explains.
Hi, Prime Minister. Are you going to extend the checks to seniors, please, sir?
We had a great conversation with caucus today.
Even some members of the Liberal caucus say the government should at least consider budging.
And I would love to see, more ambition to support seniors who need a little bit of extra help.
Yeah, ideally it'd be nice to give $250 to everybody, and I could certainly sympathize with seniors to say, why aren't we getting it? So yeah, it'd be nice to give it to them.
Should it be different? Should it be bigger? I think that's a conversation worth having, and that's a conversation I'd like to have with my constituents. That's a conversation I'd like to have with my caucus.
The government presented its plan to bring some financial relief to Canadians last week, a temporary holiday on the goods and services tax, and $250 checks in the mail for workers who make up to $150,000 a year. That's the part which has both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois saying not happening.
For sure, if there's no seniors included in the announcement, we will vote against.
We will not support checks that exclude the vulnerable. People are hurting right now. Seniors are hurting amongst the most with their fixed incomes and the high cost of living.
Late this evening, the government appeared to bow to one NDP request. The legislation they introduced focuses only on the GST holiday, meaning the checks will be debated separately. But the House remains in gridlock over the Liberals refusing to hand over unredacted documents to the Conservatives regarding a police investigation into alleged misspending of federal money. A hurdle the NDP says it's willing to clear temporarily so the affordability measures can be addressed. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A hiker who'd been missing for 50 days in BC's northeastern backcountry has been found alive. The 20-year-old from Kamloops, BC, was found on a service road in a mountainous region where temperatures have been dropping below -20 at night.
He had cut his sleeping bag and wrapped it around his legs and his feet. So he knew how to survive. It's amazing. Right now he's in Fort Nelson Hospital and the parents are on their way.
Sam Bonastic was first reported missing October 17th after failing to return home from a camping trip. A search and rescue operation was launched for the avid hiker involving teams from across the province, K-9 units and family members, but it was called off after 10 days. The local innkeeper says Bonastic was extremely weak when he was found by well site workers. Some fans have managed to land discounted tickets to the upcoming Taylor Swift concert in Vancouver. Now they're thrilled, even though their seats are behind the stage. The CBC's Maurice Katz looks at how resellers are making thousands off diehard Swifties.
Taylor Swift tickets for $15? It's the latest twist in the Eras Tour Vancouver saga. Swifties looking for tickets to the sold-out 3-show finale got one more chance Monday when thousands of tickets were released. But the catch? Those tickets are behind the stage. Tickets were sold in a queue for $15 with a $1.50 fee and listed as no stage view seats. But when regular tickets are going for $5,000, $10,000, even $15,000, even just going for the vibes seems like a great deal.
When we're talking in Eras Tour ticket prices, that's literally pocket change. That's crazy.
And like all Taylor Swift tickets, resellers are trying to capitalize. The cheapest ticket listed on StubHub at publishing is over $1,800, with some available for over $4,000. Those who got tickets had to stay locked in on social media just to get into the online queue.
It's like a crazy adrenaline rush. So basically there's Swifties who have set up like vigilante bots that track for when Ticketmaster releases tickets the same way that scalpers do. But the goal is to get true Swifties into the stadium rather than the resellers who are selling them on StubHub and other reseller markets at massive markups.
It's still not clear whether there'll be TV screens behind the stage showing the concert.
We'll see. We'll see when we get there. It might be completely obstructed, but again, just happy to get in the building. The people who are going for that aren't going for the Instagram photo. They're going to experience it. So I'm hoping it's going to be a great party.
Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
To the Middle East now, the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon appears to be holding. The deal brokered by the United States and France came into effect early this morning, local time. Thousands of displaced people have been streaming back into southern Lebanon, but many are facing vast devastation. The International Rescue Committee estimates more than 100,000 homes have been damaged or destroyed. The Israeli military now has 60 days to get all of its forces out of Lebanon. Hezbollah must pull its fighters back from the border area within the same time frame. There are now growing calls for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Meanwhile, the current Democratic administration is urging Ukraine to lower the age for call-up to its armed forces. The Associated Press reports a senior official in President Joe Biden's team believes the age of conscription should be lowered to 18 from the current 25. More than 1 million Ukrainians currently wear a military uniform. Kyiv believes it needs another 160,000 more in the fight against Russia. Health officials in Manitoba believe they've detected Canada's first case of the most severe strain of Mpox. The province says it was found in a traveler who was diagnosed shortly after returning from their trip. They say it's associated to the current outbreak of Clade 1 Mpox in Central and Eastern Africa. Jason Kindrachuk is the Canada Research Chair on Emerging Viruses at the University of Manitoba. He joins me now. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Jason, do you see this detection of Clade 1 here as significant?
You know, I think it's significant because it serves certainly as a reminder that Mpox is still within our community. I think there's been maybe a tendency to forget that, you know, following 2022, we had that bump of cases pretty quickly. And in summertime, then things subsided very quickly, but it didn't disappear. And I think the reality that we need to face is that certainly Mpox has still been in the country. The new detection of Clade 1 certainly should give us, I think, a little bit of confidence in the fact that we have good surveillance systems, good diagnostic testing that's available. Certainly our healthcare system and our healthcare workers are adept and knowledgeable on Mpox, you know, which is something that many people had not heard about prior to 2022. And you know, we're able to get care for this patient and do good contact tracing. So I look at that and say, okay, that's fantastic. But it also indicates that the situation in Central Africa continues to run a little bit unabated right now, and should remind us that you know, if we want to try and get you know, a leaky drain kind of unclogged, we need to do that at the source. We have to stop kind of trying to, you know, kind of do this a little bit piecemeal. Let's get in, let's get vaccines out, and let's try and get things contained over a long period of time.
I want to get to vaccines in a minute, but first, you just returned from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where you were studying the virus and where the strain has been circulating. So can you tell us a little bit about what you were seeing there?
Yeah, you know, we've been on the ground now for a couple of years, or just under a couple of years, across many different areas of DRC. You know, I think for us, the situation has continued to be more complex almost on a daily basis, right? So we've still seen a lot of zoonotic transmission, so contact or infections driven through contact with wildlife. But we've also seen the emergence of Clade 1b, that being in the eastern DRC, that has been associated with more sustained human-human transmission. So that has certainly changed the epidemiology of this disease. The clinical symptoms and picture of this disease have also changed based on that changing pattern in transmission. And now we're seeing in Kinshasa that the prior strain that was associated mostly with infection through contact with animals, we're picking up signals that it may actually be picking up some steam in terms of human-to-human transmission events. So it's complex, but again, I think it's kind of, you know, all hands are on deck trying to get this under control.
I think complex is an understatement. It can get a little confusing when we start talking about all the different strains here, but the one we're talking about right now is Clade 1. So how is that different from what we were seeing circulating a few years back that you were talking about?
Yeah, you know, there's I think, you know, some tendency again to look kind of back at historical data, and say, well, listen, clade 1, which we know is endemic in Central Africa and in multiple different countries in that region, that has tended to appear to be more virulent than the clade 2 type of monkeypox virus, which is endemic in different areas of West Africa. The reality is, I think, much murkier, certainly with the emergence of clade 2b, which we saw here in Canada in 2022, that kind of increased human-to-human transmission that we've seen, that changing in the epidemiology to older age groups, and now what we're seeing with clade 1b kind of following that same path. I think now the differences are becoming a little bit harder to discern directly. I think we need more clinical data to be able to identify that. But right now, I'd say we have a definitive regional separation between where those two types of monkeypox virus are endemic.
I want to quickly get to vaccinations here. So who should be getting vaccinated, and are the right people getting vaccinated right now?
Yeah, the reality is really in DRC, in areas where we've had endemic disease, what we're seeing right now is a rollout to those groups that are at the highest risk for infection, and certainly where we've seen, kind of that exponential growth of infections. In Eastern DRC, that's primarily been, healthcare workers, frontline workers, but also those that are at increased risk for infection. So sex workers, those that identify as GBMSM, but also now rolling out into children, because we know that they have borne historically the greatest mortality and morbidity of this disease. Here in Canada, we're still looking at risk groups. That hasn't changed from 2022. We still need people to go out to get those doses if they're in at-risk groups, and certainly if they've already had one dose, to also seek out getting that second dose as well.
Jason, real quick here, should Manitobans be concerned?
No, I think the concern for us is more that this has been an ongoing situation with endemic disease in DRC for many decades. We need to get vaccines on ground. For us, we have good capacity here in Canada as well, across the global north, for early detection. But that doesn't mean that we should kind of rest on our laurels. If we want to kind of decrease risk globally, let's do this at the source.
All right, Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
After the break, a mix of concern and skepticism. We have reaction to Trump's plan to slap a 25% tariff on goods imported from Canada and Mexico. Stay with us. 2 days after Donald Trump announced his plan to slap a 25% tariff on goods imported from Canada and Mexico, people on this side of the border are reacting with a mix of concern and skepticism. As Paula Duhatschek reports, it's hard to predict how this will play out.
If these tariffs were to go forward, it would be a huge hit to Canadian industry. According to the Canada Energy Regulator, last year Canadian crude oil exports were valued at $124 billion, and the vast majority of that went to the United States. Still, some experts say we should take this threat with a grain of salt. One former energy manager we spoke with says Trump's advisors are coming from the world of business, not government, and so that means their messages are going to be different from what people are used to hearing.
Politicians tend to speak with intention and purpose. A business person is going to speak with the idea of using it as strategy for the ultimate maneuver. And so that makes it more difficult to predict what is coming.
It's also worth pointing out that because the U.S. also depends on Canada for oil imports, this tariff plan would run counter to another Trump campaign promise to lower inflation and to make life more affordable for Americans. Still, while some in the industry see Trump's tariff threats as bluster and tactics, others warn we should take this threat seriously. The news outlet Reuters reporting that according to two sources close to the file, Trump has no plans to spare crude oil from this tariff plan. Plus, whether this particular tariff goes ahead or not, the conversation so far shows that trade relations between our two countries are off to a rocky start, to say the least. Paula Duhatschek, CBC News, Calgary.
Late this afternoon, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with premiers from across the country to talk about trade, tariffs, and Trump. CBC's Ian Fraze is at the Manitoba Legislature this evening, where Wab Kinew has really just finished speaking with reporters. So let's bring Ian right in. So, Ian, what did the Premier disclose about their talks today?
Yeah, the Premier just walked away in the last 10 minutes. He says as the Premier, as the leader of Team Manitoba, he is more than happy to play a role here. He said his points at the meeting really boiled down to four arguments. The first one around law enforcement. We know that Donald Trump is saying that, these tariffs will exist so long as, drugs and migrants are still illegally entering the U.S. from Canada. So Wab Kinew is saying we need to respond with border security and making that stronger. He says improving law enforcement will not only appease the United States, but be a good thing for Manitobans here at home. Here's a clip from Kinew right now.
Listen, Manitobans have long been talking about drugs being an issue in our communities. This is going back many years. And so what's the downside? If we invest in law enforcement and we crack down on drug trafficking here at a time when that message might be well received in the States, at the same time, we're going to make communities safer here in Manitoba.
He made three other points. He made three other points there, rather. He spoke about agriculture and the importance that is to Manitoba, canola and pork among Manitoba's biggest exporters. He spoke about how Canada needs to develop a clear strategy on China, referencing that the United States is sort of reorientating its approach to China and that Canada should follow suit. And he also spoke about defense spending, saying that Canada needs to get to 2% of defense spending, 2% of the GDP. Now, Canada has promised to get to that target by 2032, but Trump has been among the critics in the U.S. criticizing NATO countries who have yet to hit that target. They say waiting till 2032 is much too long. The Premier, again, pointing out all these pieces. They are all regional elements, but saying that if Canada can work on all these measures, it will appease the United States and be good for us here at home.
So, Ian, did he say what he wants the federal government to do?
Yeah, I mean, all of those things are kind of like that, those regional interests. The Prime Minister talked about how, all the premiers, they're really taking this threat seriously. They know the risk that this could be catastrophic to our economy. The Premier Canoe said there was widespread agreement among the premiers about boosting defense spending to 2%, and also on RCMP funding. The Premier did acknowledge that there was some sort of commitment from the federal government here that is an area that can be improved upon. Premier Canoe referencing that maybe that looks like a dedicated team, so we wouldn't be taking Mounties away from communities, but maybe a dedicated team on the border to help with border security.
All right, lots more to come. Thanks so much. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Riley's back now. And Riley, I know one thing that you and I both really love about our jobs is the littles that come in, sometimes the not so littles, but the kids that get to come in and we get to talk to you about our jobs. And you had a chance to do that today.
The grade 5-6 kids from William White School came in today and asked me a lot of questions on sticky notes.
I love it.
That I've kept on my desk. They're very prepared. So thanks guys for coming in. It was a nice bright spot of the day.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We enjoy it.
Yes, another bright spot with our dog walking forecast. Even if it's cloudy outside, we can maybe expect a couple of stray flurries through the morning hours tomorrow. We will see winds picking up, though, as we get through the overnight period into tomorrow. So maybe starting quite light with the winds tomorrow at -10, but by the time we get to the afternoon hours, we're really looking at those winds picking up as we get into the later part of the day tomorrow for sure. This is Iggy. Thanks, Devin and Henry, for sending this picture in. You can keep sending yours to talkback at cbc.ca. So we're looking at cloudy skies as we get through the overnight period tonight, down to -11 in Winnipeg overnight tonight, with a little bit of flurry activity moving in, -18s, -19s back to the west, -9s into parts of northwestern Ontario, -16 in Flin Flon overnight tonight, -12 in Norway House, Thompson with a few flurries, and -13. So I mentioned those winds starting to pick up as we get through the day tomorrow, even by lunchtime, looking at winds picking up northwest 20 gusting 40 through parts of the Red River Valley. Could see some of those picking up into that 50 range even through the afternoon. So any of that light snow really will pick up and blow around as we get through the day tomorrow. -14s by lunchtime in Flin Flon and the Pas, -12 in Norway House with a mainly cloudy sky. Into southern Manitoba, we're looking at temperatures around that -17, -18 mark first thing in the morning, but -9 in Winnipeg. So really looking at temperatures staying quite, I guess, more seasonal for this time of the year in the Red River Valley, a little bit below seasonal. And again, I mentioned that risk of a couple of scattered flurries or even a couple of periods of light snow through the morning hours tomorrow for Winnipeg. That does push off into northwestern Ontario as we get into the day tomorrow. So -7s by lunchtime in northwestern Ontario, but -15s and -16s back to the west. And as we get later in the day, we'll start to see those winds picking up, particularly in the south central part of Manitoba. So looking at temperatures or winds more like northwest 20 gusting 40 up to 50. Up to 40 in the Westman region tomorrow with -17s by the afternoon in Verdun and Brandon. -9 in Pinawa and -6s and -7s with a good chance we'll see some flurries, Brittany, into northwestern Ontario tomorrow afternoon. All of your 7-day forecast coming up.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
A group of girls in Montreal has been in the holiday spirit for months already, gathering items for a special project, acts of grace and giving, that we'll let them tell you about.
Hi, I'm Isabella DiCamillo. I'm in Sec 5 of John F. Kennedy High School, and we are currently doing the shoebox project for our girls group. These are for women and in shelters, so we make these boxes to give them something during the holidays.
So I started this girls group when the girls were in Sec 2. I was thinking, what can I do to teach the girls to give back to the society? I started off the first year with 50 boxes. We ended up doing 75, and then it went from 100 to 125. So this year we managed to do 125.
We start donations near the beginning of September, where we go around and we ask people to donate things like toothpaste, gloves, soaps, body washes, all that.
One of the letters we put into the boxes, and they're all like messages to give them to raise their spirits.
It means a lot to give back to people who are less fortunate than me, especially women who are struggling. They don't really have a lot of help nowadays, so it's nice to give back, especially during the holidays. It can be a little sad, when you don't have people who are in your corner,
But you guys are amazing. The girls group gives them a safe space to come at lunch, to speak. And you know what? They also encourage each other. If someone's having an issue with their parents, we openly talk.
It gives me a sense of community. I mean, I feel definitely a lot more like close.
It's like girls support girls, if you will.
I've known a few of these girls since grade 1, and now they're graduating. These girls are amazing, and I'm so proud of them. And I know that they'll leave JFK doing great things.
When we leave, the Sec 1s are going to end up taking over. They're probably not going to do as many just because it's their first year, but I just hope that by the time that they grow up and they're in Sec 5 like us, they probably will end up doing double the amount that we're doing now.
Here's a look at West Broadway all lit up. Riley's back with the last check on your forecast when we come back. Stay with us. Winnipeg Police and the Fire Paramedic Service are warning people to stay off thin ice on rivers and lakes. They say parents should talk to their kids about the dangers of thin ice and freezing water. Police say what may seem like an adventure to kids can quickly turn into a life-threatening situation. And this is a particularly dangerous time of year.
The ice is thin, The water is ice cold, and if you fall through, the risk of hypothermia and possible death is very real.
He says it only takes a moment for things to get dangerous with tragic consequences. He added, if you see someone falling into cracked ice, call 911 and do not go onto the ice to offer help. The fire paramedic service says it's called to around 150 ice rescues every year.
I thought this was a good time to bring back our ice thickness guide. As you saw, some open water on the river still at the Forks there. We need about 4 to 6 inches before you start to head out on the ice to go ice fishing or anything like that. The Forks will start pulling out its equipment by the time we get to that 10, 12-inch ice thickness. That's when you can safely get a small car onto the ice. And of course, you need much more than that if you're taking a truck out there. So we're a ways away from there yet. We haven't seen nearly as cold weather as we need for that yet. So -9 tomorrow, chance of flurries in the morning, and then we're into -11s and -12s and not a lot of sunshine until we get to Monday. Then I've got a mix of sun and clouds, and we slowly get back toward more seasonal conditions as we get to mid-next week. Well, she has defied the limits yet again. Katerina Sidurska of Ukraine has just set a new world freediving depth record.
Her record-breaking dive is our daily lift. Sidurska made it down 82 meters, holding a single breath for an extraordinary 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Her latest deep dive defeated her previous world record dive that she made only last month.
Okay, breathe, breathe.
Sidurska swims alone when it comes to free diving. She is now a 6-time world record holder.
I don't even know if I could hold my breath that long if my life actually depended on it. That is incredible.
Incredible. And
wow.
it must be so claustrophobic down there.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how she does it, but beautiful views, and it would maybe a little serenity by yourself.
Exactly.
Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.